You're watching Dukascopy TV. I'm Elaine Stenson. The internationalisation of the yuan is taking major strides towards becoming a reality. I'm joined on the line now by Bill Hubard, who is Chief Economist with Markets.com. Bill, the yuan has replaced the euro to become the second most widely used currency in global trade in 2013. That's according to the SWIFT network responsible for international financial transactions. What were the main factors that have caused this?
Well, I think the main factor, the simple fact is in the last 5 years, China has become a major player in the global financial markets. And I think one of the things that you're seeing is as the euro seems to have problems, whether it be with the introduction of Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania and these other countries, China is, one country. But I think one of the things where I'm probably not as pro renminbi or yuan as probably everybody else is, because I go back to the second plenum, which was 11 years ago, when the current government came in for the first time, and basically, and I can't pronounce his name, but the Chinese Prime Minister was saying, or Premier was saying, China is one country, and then I think the most important thing that he mentioned was we are one country with two currencies. The currencies, of course, being the Hong Kong dollar, which has been pegged to the U.S. dollar since day one, and the renminbi. And I think one of the things where, whether it's convertibility of the yuan or the renminbi, that comes up every so often. And, just like the concept of what they call special drawing rights with the IMF. So, yes, I think eventually this will happen and it will become a convertible currency. I'm not expecting it to be a convertible currency, anytime in the very near future. And I think it's quite interesting. If you look at any of the major, say, U.S. accounts, and I won't give any names, but 3 or 4 of the major accounts in the past several weeks have been far more interested in the Chinese looking to use Bitcoin as payment for like PayPal and the equivalent of Amazon, et cetera, in China. And I think that, to me, is a little bit more interesting, at least near term. Will that give the Bitcoin more reliability or realistic approach than anything else?
Hong Kong, the largest yuan hub, has accumulated a record 782 billion yuan in October. The same month, the UK's Chancellor George Osborne announced plans to make London an offshore banking centre for the yuan. What kind of an impact do you think that this will have?
Well, I think one of the problems that I have is that about making it an offshore impact. But I think we still have the problem here in the UK with so many of the authorities, whether it be the FCA now, the FSA, and all this bang bashing that we see. And one of the things is we just had even Goldman Sachs just say, finally coming in print last week, that if the UK left the European Union, they're leaving the UK and would end up being in France. And I think a number of my friends, and it goes back 5, 6, 7 years ago, when there was the problem. This was pre-Lehman Brothers, but again, when it was bank bashing and everybody was against the banks. And I had a friend of mine at that time was working at Barclays Capital, and basically Bobby Diamond sent him to Singapore, and he has opened up an office there. There are only 11 people in situ in Singapore, but there is the possibility there are 450 trading desks. And again, this was, say before the problems with Bernie Madoff, the problems before Lehman, the problems before the economic downturn. But, one of the big jokes was Dubai, Shanghai, London, goodbye. And I think it's one of the things where I think if you want to be realistic, I think we have to look more like what's happening with the renminbi locally. And I'm talking about, say, with the ASEAN group, because one of the things that we've seen in the past 6 months is the People's Bank of China has signed yuan swap agreements, okay? The same swap agreements that the U.S. has with the Eurozones, the U.S. has with the other ASEAN communities. And then we're talking about Japan, Korea, as you just mentioned, Hong Kong, Singapore, Iceland, Argentina, and Australia. And if we're looking at in the last 3+ years, we have almost 1 trillion renminbi swap agreements. And we're talking with the Bank of Indonesia. We're talking about 400 billion with Bank of Korea, 200 million with the National Bank of Kazakhstan, the New Zealand Reserve Bank, again, the 150 billion with the the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and of course the largest one is 600 billion with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. So one of the things that we're seeing here is the simple fact is the currency is coming to convertibility. I'm almost 70 years old. I'm not really feeling that it's going to come to convertibility during my lifetime. And I think one of the things that we have to look at is, in reference to convertibility, so much of this has to be, quote, approved by, the International Monetary Authority, okay? Now, the key thing that you have to look at is, okay, the U.S. has the largest voting power, which is 16.83%, all right? Now, to get anything passed, one of the passes would be to, quote, make the yuan convertibility amongst all currencies, okay? There has to be an 85% pass rate. Well, as you can see right now, 100 minus 16.83 does not give the ability if the U.S. decided to veto the situation. As I say, it will come. I do not see it coming anytime in the very near future.
And finally, Bill, China, the world's second biggest economy, has been promoting its currency in order to seek a bigger role in the global financial arena. Authorities have pledged to loosen controls over interest rates and to further open up its capital account on a trial basis in a new free trade zone in Shanghai. Do you think it could become the most widely used currency in global trade?
It'll be quite interesting because having been a bond man and starting in the bond market in 1971, when I first started in New York, everybody was concerned about the Japanese owning so many U.S. treasuries. Well, as we've seen in the last 3 years, Japan has become number 2. China has become the largest holder of U.S. treasuries. And we're talking about 72% of the U.S. treasury market is held by the Chinese and the Japanese together, with about close to 40-some trillion dollars in securities held by the People's Bank of China. So it'll be quite interesting because for this to become a total convertible currency, there's going to have to be something done. And one of the things why we have not seen any backup, and this goes back 3 years ago, if you will, when the U.S. lost their AAA rating, we actually saw interest rates within 6 months of that going down to an all-time high. And if you look at the TIX data, which comes out once a month on a 3-month delay, China continues to either maintain or increase their holdings of U.S. treasuries. And remember, U.S. treasuries are paid in dollars. And I think one of the things, and I may have sent this to you just recently, I'm more interested in what's going to happen with this military, situation with the two islands that are claimed both by China and Japan in reference to what happens. But I mean, it really is going to be a situation where this is not going to be announced like secretly overnight. This is going to be something that will continue to be negotiated at a very high level. And, forget these G3, 5, 7, 10, 15, and 20, 24, how many numbers there are now. I forget. Countries, when they're talking about currency wars and this, that, and the other. I mean, when it's time to talk, it will be a very, very serious discussion between, the U.S. Treasury, the People's Bank of China, probably the Bank of England, and as you mentioned, the European Central Bank because of the euro convertibility. It's something that's coming. It's something that's an interesting talking point, maybe in a slow market of this, that, and the other. I do not see it happening right now, and I think one of the things that we have seen, in the past year, I mean, their overall cross-border receipts and payments stood at 11% in 2012, They were up from 7% in 2011 and only 2% in 2010. So we are seeing yuan flows into China for both foreign direct and portfolio investment increasing threefold with from a year earlier. Now, the key thing is we know that the authorities have built up a yuan clearing agreement between Hong Kong and the mainland to reflect, the growing pace of the integration, and this has happened. My feeling is that it's going to continue to become a real situation. But I mean, I think we've got a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of politicking, if you will, because before this becomes something that, as I say, that all of a sudden it appears in the first page of the Financial Times or the Wall Street tomorrow morning. But as I say, it's a very good topic. It's a topic that's, as I say, in a slow market, whether it's yuan convertibility or increase in special drawing rights. But as I say, in the last week, 2 or 3 major U.S. brokerage firms, 2 of which have appeared on financial television, talking about the real acceptability far more of the Bitcoin right now than the Chinese yuan.
Bill Hubard from Markets.com, thank you so much for joining me on the line today. And that's all from me for now. But do check back for more interviews and updates from the TV team throughout the week. Bye for now.